Welcome into the official Jets podcast, Eric Allen and Bart Scott. This is a training camp special, and a training camp special means you got your credential out today.
Yeah,
huh?
man. Hey, man, listen, you can't assume.
They don't recognize you in the building?
Hey, you can't assume, man. Everybody has an expiration date.
Hey, first day of public out here, as far as so the fans are out here to watch the Jets in action. What are you most excited about 2024 training camp?
Well, I think really what you want to focus on is what's different from last year. And in my opinion, what's different from last year is the offensive line. Now, last year going into the season, the biggest concern was the offensive line and protection from a older quarterback. And, I want to see – I played against Tyron Smith, but I've never watched him work and really been able to analyze him just by looking at him and watching him and, seeing how he prepares and how he walks. Even though I kind of even forget what he is as far as standing next to him.
So he's a beast.
Right. So I want to see how that works. But then at the same time, I want to see how Fashanu is mirroring him,
right,
and how he's trying to learn from him. I want to see if he's asking questions, because I believe that at some point in this season, you're going to have to try and lean on Fashanu a little bit, even if it's in blowout games, and you hope that as many of them, that he can go out there and get some work and get some experience, and this can be a year in which he can develop and still get some live action. I mean, who knows? Maybe he can come out and be that extra tight end that tackle over when the Jets want to kind of salt the game away and be able to kind of run the football and take the tight end out of him
and put him in. You're talking ground and pound now.
Yeah, ground and pound. You know what I mean? Because that's usually what it comes down to. The game comes down to, can you stop fourth and short, or can you convert it? And so I want to see how this offensive line works with each other. AVT, being in one position, being able to settle in, because I believe if he does that, I think the world and the rest of the NFL will know that he is, he didn't make that top 10 list of positions and all that stuff. But I believe if it wasn't for his injuries and if he would have been at one place, he'd have been so dominant at this point. He'd have been probably ranked the number one guard in all of football. I really believe in that. I'm that bold on this guy's ability. And also I believe him not really having to lean on different muscles and go out to right tackle, left guard, right guard, allows his body to understand what the demands are for the position, so that muscle and those muscle fibers can get used to being there to avoid injury.
So this is just a preview because you're coming back in the regular season, right?
Yeah, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm in preseason too.
Yeah.
We in preseason too. We getting used to them warming up, you know what I mean? My vocals, they ain't strong like they used to be
you
right
look
now.
like you've been working out. I know a lot of people are listening.
Well,
right
listen,
now.
because I know you rippling still in sex appeal. I know you was going out there, probably on the beach working out like Rocky Balboa, you know what I mean? So I know I can't be on camera.
Well, you got to
continue
be my
to cut up.
Creed, man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can't be out here. You continue to cut up, and then I'm getting bloated. You know what I mean? I'm like, nah, I ain't gonna do that. We ain't gonna look like the number 10.
All right, so you are on the radio here in New York every day.
Mm-hmm.
What's your messaging been about Haason Reddick not reporting to training camp?
Well, for me, I've been a little bit of nothing to see here.
Okay.
I understand that it should be concerned, because we expected him to be here during mini camps. We expected him to be here to training camp. And, as a fan and the fan base that calls in, they didn't think they thought this was a non-issue. So they're concerned because they just want everything perfect. But if you look across the league, whether you talk about what's going on with the San Francisco 49ers, the fact that, we expected Brandon Ayuk to be unhappy.
Yeah, then Trent Williams.
We didn't expect Trent Williams to be unhappy after they made him the first $100 million lineman, just a couple years ago. He's like, no, I want more. And we see CeeDee Lamb and we see Jordan Love. So it's a new part of the business, and I think it's something that the Jets are not unfamiliar with, through the years of the Revis years and, renegotiating. I think what has fans nervous is the fact that he was traded for. It's not like he was here.
Right.
Right. But, I think what a great opportunity for McDonald, Jermaine, and I think he'll hit the ground running. And I think, negotiations take time, but we know that deadlines breed action, and the more and more camp starts, the greater the need to get him in camp to be able to hit the ground running, because we all know what awaits us in game one is a tremendous test, a test that I think that you would want Haason Reddick really there for, to be able to be the difference potentially. Maybe getting to Brock Purdy and getting a pivotal sack, or setting the edge and getting a tackle for loss on Christian McCaffrey. You're going to need all hands on deck, because we know the opponent in week one is maybe the greatest opponent we'll face all year.
How about that? This is just practice 2. So we're going to get this podcast up on YouTube, NewYorkJets.com, all our audio platforms as always, as soon as possible.
Yeah.
The reason why I want to do that is because Reddick could be here tomorrow. He could be here Saturday. You don't know.
Right.
What do you envision?
I mean, listen, we all know negotiations, how they work. Me being in 3 different negotiations, I know how it works. I'm assuming that, really the signing, in my opinion, probably Brian Burns kind of threw a wrench. The fact that it's a guy right across town that's getting $30 million a year, and Haason Reddick, if you go over the stats, it's only 2 or 3 guys that has more sacks than him in the last 2 years, 27 sacks in the last 2 years.
Crazy.
I believe never having less than double-digit sacks since he's been a member of the Philadelphia Eagles, and how important he is, right? Because I feel like what he's going to allow Jermaine Johnson to do is, get the benefit of the doubt and go against the, single coverage a lot of times. And once he proves that he wins, then they're going to try and figure out, okay, we keep sliding – we keep sliding the line towards Quinnen and Reddick, or Quinnen and Quinnen or Jermaine.
Right.
Now, Kinlaw can eat, right? So, like, he sets the table for so many people, and he really allows you to really have to pick your poison, because at times, if Will McDonald can step up, right, then you talk about some type of NASCAR package.
And I knew you were going to go to the NASCAR package.
Where you're kicking maybe Johnson in because he's probably the bigger of all 3. And then now you got just all hands on deck. And that's what you anticipate, right? Because you think with Aaron Rodgers, his war and what he's capable of doing. Mike Williams, I'm excited to see what he's going to do, because I feel like he's important to relieve the pressure from Garrett to eat, and everybody wants to see what Corley's all about.
Why does Reddick win so much? He's got more than 50 sacks over the last 4 seasons. And then in terms of taking the football away, his forced fumbles over the course of the last 4 years, number 1 in the National Football League.
Yeah.
Why is he able to get to the quarterback and win?
Because he's Steven Seagal. So when I talk about it, I talk about violent, active hands.
Yeah.
Right, he's always moving. He's always, changing the target, making himself skinny, tremendous hips, hip flexion. And when you think about him, don't think about Myles Garrett. Don't think about Joey Bosa.
No.
Like, guys that are just really big, strong, overly muscular sized guys. When I think of him, I think about Robert Mathis. Right, I think about Osi Umenyiora, guys that are fluid, maybe not the biggest. Can win with power, but win with athleticism and being able to have multiple moves and counters, perpetual motion. You know? So I think that's why he wins. He sets the edge when he needs to, but he's a guy that can win with his hip bend and waist bend and his pliability.
Do you think the Jets are going to benefit from everything they went through last year? Hard knocks, reporting to training camp early, playing in a Hall of Fame game, all the expectations. And what I said recently here on the pod is that I thought there was a newness to it, and externally everybody thought this was a show. Whereas these guys have already went through it before,
right?
And now they're starting anew. And, oh, by the way, they're starting anew with, I think, a roster that's better.
Yeah, this is a better roster, right? When you think about the revamped line, I mean, if you go, and don't take my word for it, you want to go to PFF or you want to go to all the experts out there, the Jets have gone from the bottom of the rankings when you consider, offensive line to top 10, and I've seen them as high as top 5 offensive line in some rankings.
Yeah.
So you think about that, and, you think about what happened and what this offensive line went through last year, all the different combinations, but also you consider that the guys last year that was main guys that had to step up are now valuable depth pieces with tremendous experience. So, I mean, I'm excited because I know around here that, they love Carter Warren. And so I'm excited to see what he can do. I'm excited to see, being able to be that swing guy, who knows, for Shanu. And I think, you can really lean on the fact that it's guys that, had to put their feet to the fire. And, I'm excited the fact that, okay, we have Aaron, but then we have Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah,
and I'm very confident that, if Aaron need to take a couple games off or will side out or whatever, like, I'm confident that Tyrod can come in and with this offense and with what he has, I think this is the best, weapons and protection that he's had. He's played well last year with the Giants. We know what he did when he was with the Chargers. So I'm confident that, in this day and age, a lot of teams, have to use their backup for a game or two. I'm confident that if that happens, we have a professional there that can play at a high level.
How much would you have enjoyed playing with Rodgers? Because he's so intentional with everything he does inside the locker room, every movement, every meal, guys he's going to be talking to after every play, the way he takes things in and then just communicates. And there is a fire that still burns that is impressive from a guy who's 40 and has accomplished everything that he has so far.
Well, it's tough for a guy, when you get, to year 20.
Yep.
And, it's hard to find motivation. But the fact that, he's coming off the season that he had last year, the fact that he's with a new organization, I think was something that, he's been doubted. And people don't think he can pull it off. I think that's all the motivation that a great player needs, to be able to refocus and say, "Hey, I can do this here." People, think I can play, but they don't think I can be elite. And I think that's really what the assignment is. I mean, if I look at this roster and being honest, I can look at this roster, and I can go over, all the rosters in which Aaron Rodgers had, and I can arguably say that this may be as good a roster that he has had since the year he won the Super Bowl. I want to, still respect A.J. Hawk and Charles Woodson and Clay Matthews and B.J. Raji. I want to respect those guys, but I would put the personnel on this defense right there with them and say that arguably it could be better.
What would have happened that year if the Jets were lining up against Aaron Rodgers in the Super Bowl?
I was excited because, we had seen them, and it was 9 points. And if we would have saw them again, I think they were just as excited that the Steelers won than if they had to see us as well. Yeah, I mean, that was a defense that we took away what they do well. On the flip side, their defense dominated our offense, but, Aaron Rodgers, could want to take a couple more chances in the Super Bowl. Nobody wants to try to win a Super Bowl 9-0, but, in the regular season, you'll take it. So I think we would have got him.
Different offense now, different player now.
Mm-hmm.
What is different about Rodgers and the guy you did face in that regular season you're talking about 15 years ago?
Well, I think he's comfortable with himself, right? Before, he was still starting. He hadn't won a championship yet, right? And I think he's comfortable in who he is. And I think at this point, the defenses that he faces now are much easier than the defenses he faced then. We saw this with Tom Brady and some of the comments that he made about how, guys don't study like they used to.
Music to your ears.
Yeah, how you talk about how, quarterbacks, defenders are being punished for bad quarterback play because the game has been made easier because you can just throw a guy into a hit, but a guy can't hit him anymore. So now that gives you more space to take risks because it's no penalty of your guy coming back and saying, "Hey, man, you just got my head knocked off," because you can't do that anymore. So I think Aaron Rodgers now, he can win more with his mind than he has to with his body, and I think that's the game. I mean, you think about some of the guys that have won championships later in their career, it was this formula, right? They didn't have to be. He doesn't have to be MVP Rodgers. Now, we'll take MVP Rodgers, but he doesn't have to be because of the supporting cast is so much better around him than when he won those MVPs.
Right. Garrett Wilson said he studied film recently of Rodgers and what he did in Green Bay and the way opposing defensive coordinators tried to counter him. Yeah. What do you anticipate this year? Not so much from Wilson, because we'll get to him in a second.
The Mahomes treatment.
But
the Mahomes treatment.
Yeah.
Right?
Because you're talking about MVP. I'm wondering if the Jets have an MVP in the offensive backfield. Yeah, the quarterback certainly could be one if he.
Yeah, I mean it's hard for even though like when we see that Christian McCaffrey didn't get it, last person,
where I was going right there.
Yeah, last person to get it was Adrian Peterson. It's hard for that guy. You got to get over 2,000 to do that, and even when you get close to 2,000, they still gonna find a way to give it to a quarterback because quarterbacks are throwing close to 5,000 yards now.
I got you.
So I can see Breece Hall as the offensive the offensive
player of the year.
Yeah, offensive player of the year. But I can see Aaron Rodgers, if everything goes well, he can push for the MVP. If the Jets are 13-4, I mean, everybody's going to eat.
I just don't know the counter, I guess. I'm so fascinated by that opening matchup that you talked about, San Francisco.
To me, when you look at that opening matchup, these are identical teams. It's pretty much the same thing. Quentin Williams, Hargraves, Nick Bosa, Haason Reddick,
McCaffrey,
right? Linebacker, Fred Warner, C.J. Mosley. Greenlaw won't be there, but you would give the Jets the advantage on as far as the cornerback position.
Definitely.
But you can see Saleh definitely built this team in a splitting image of the San Francisco 49ers. You talk about great left tackle.
Right.
Right? Great guard. It's the similarities are, the difference is the experience at quarterback. Right?
No doubt.
You talk about the wide receiver position. Ayuk, Garrett,
Yeah.
and Mike Williams, when he's on, could be on. And I can say, who knows? I think Curly they see Deebo Samuels in him.
You like Corley?
Yeah, I see people see Percy Harvin, Deebo Samuels, a big physical guy that they can use in multiple ways to get the ball in his hands.
So ultimately, you're going to play the long game with Mike Williams. He starts camp on the PUP. He's going to take the same. They're going to take the same approach they did with Brees last year, and hopefully you get the same sort of production, just at a different position. But what does his addition mean for Garrett? What does it mean for Brees as far as space?
Right. Well, it's somebody that's going to force teams to play more honest. Can't lean that safety over there, cover three. Nobody's leaning, because if you see Mike Williams on the backside with one-on-one coverage with the safety, no safety over the top, what do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to do? He's going to check to a fade, check to a back shoulder. He's going to get that guy to the ball. I mean, he's one of the most deadly deep threats there have been in the league in the last couple of years. So you give that guy opportunity, then teams got to get out of that, because Garrett Wilson is running slants, comebacks, goals. Not so much. He'll go deep, but he's not always going the 9 route.
Right.
Mike Williams is a 9 route guy. So you doing that, you trying to bracket Garrett, because you're trying to get somebody underneath, jam him, be physical at the line. And if you do that, you can't double everybody. Right, you still have to try and figure out, hey, man, we don't really want our linebacker against Breece Hall in space in man-to-man coverage too often. Dude caught 76 balls last year.
That's right.
Dude caught 76 balls.
We really all running backs.
Yeah, we really don't want that happening.
It was Garrett 95, then Breece
right.
76.
So we block. So now and then it's like it's the game you play. Like, okay, well, if you double him, now it's 10 on 10.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's 11 on 11, because now you're using 2 for their 1. So now, okay, who you gonna double? So really, Conklin and Corley and Brees and all set by the table of Garrett. And I would love to see, when they do decide to put Lazard out. I mean, I expect better production from him, because
he first day of practice.
Yeah, but the fact that I know he had a down year and people were down on him. But we didn't see him with Aaron. Aaron knows how to get the best. So I expect to see the best version of him. So if he gives us 400, 500 yards receiving, that's a blessing, right?
He's another guy you got to account for in the red zone, right?
Right. It's what kind of packages can you give him to kind of make him do things that he does well? And Aaron knows what he does well. So it's all those little things, right? It's when you talk about championships, it's not those guys that you expect to kill you that kill you. That's what we expect. When we had our success, who was it? It was Jericho. It was Brad. It was Brad Smith.
Yep.
It was guys like that killed you. It was Braylon and Santonio, that's good, but you expect that from them. That's what you pay them for. It was those guys that broke your heart, because Coach, we stopped so-and-so, they didn't get off today, but Brad took a kickoff return 80 yards, or
Jericho Cosby, one of my favorite Jets.
Yeah, or Jericho caught something over the middle on a pivotal third down,
yeah.
And what do you do with that? So it's those guys, and now I can see that we have those guys in place. Now let's see if Bromley, let's see if those guys can step up and be the difference, but they should be expecting and trying to be unsung heroes.
Good opportunity for the young guys with reps right throughout the summer because, yes, Mike's going to be back eventually, but right now you talk about Lazard's not young, but he's in a bounce back mode. Xavier Gibson, second year. You mentioned Brownlee, Irv Charles, a special teams contributor who wants,
I want to see these I want to see these running backs too, man.
Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis,
and Izzy,
the second year.
Yeah, can Izzy be the H-hand to Mustard?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Can he be that guy come in?
Dude, you realize how big Braylon Allen is?
Yeah.
They make you look like a small little man.
I already know. That's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm talking about. That's why I'm excited to see those guys.
Yeah.
You know
okay. Defensively, though, you mentioned Kinlaw. I'm very intrigued by this signing. Former first-round pick.
Yeah.
Reunites with Saleh. Saleh in San Francisco, defensive coordinator in 2020. Mm-hmm. What do you think about his talents and the thought process that, hey, anytime the Jets get a free agent along that defensive line, they start.
I mean, he's once again he's going to get favorable matchups because the guy next to him is going to be drawing a double team.
Yep.
So he's going to get opportunities, and also, fortunate for him, he has great pass rushers on the outside, whether it's Reddick or Johnson. So he's going to get favorable matchups, and he should have a lot to prove because he's on a 1 year, and his career hasn't taken off like we anticipated. So this is an opportunity to rewrite the story.
No doubt. Will McDonald, you mentioned him before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see the growth. I want to see his body. That's why I want to go out there and physically see him.
We're going to go out to see him just one moment here.
Yeah, so I want to see the difference in his body and maturing, right? Because you talk about the jump from year one to year two.
But do you see the bend in the athleticism?
That's obvious.
Yeah.
That's obvious.
But Saleh said he's Gumby.
Yeah,
Gumby-like.
Yeah. You talk about pliability and being able to bend the corner, stuff like that. So we know all that. We know the explosive first step. The issues are and were, can he set the edge and make things go inside? Can he be physical at the point of attack? And sometimes last year he tried to run around and use his athleticism to do that.
And you can't do that in the NFL.
You can't do that in the NFL because you're opening the gate. You're widening the space. So you have to be able to set hard edges. And, you only do that. You saw that with Jermaine Johnson last year. Came back physically ready. He may have been athletically ready the first year, but wasn't physically ready to be able to handle the physical demands. Remember, a lot of times, these guys are going to be on the left tackle, who's usually the best player, highest paid player on the team. But if you go on the right tackle, that's usually the war daddy.
Right.
That's the guy they run behind, right? And he has to make sure that whenever it's a tight end, that's not even up for debate. That's a win every time. If they ever decide to put a tight end out there to decide that. I don't care, even if it's George Kittle, week one. You got to be able to, fight your ass off to be able to set that edge.
You talked about it. We put it up on the telestration last year, like Jermaine's power, how he did take that step between year 1 and 2. But his body's definitely different than Will, right?
Yeah.
Like he was naturally thicker.
Mm-hmm. But Will just needs to be more what he was last year. And usually that happens because you're not training to run fast for a 40. You're able to get the ample rest. Your first year is crazy because you go straight from football season to training and combine and tests and all that stuff. It's the longest year of your life. This year he was able to, after the season, watch football, let his body heal, and train to be stronger. He didn't have to worry about running and being faster. You'll never run a 40 again. Nobody cares about getting faster. There's nobody trying to get faster. They might try to get quicker. Ain't nobody trying to get faster.
Right.
They trying to grow into their man body and become more physically mature.
So for him, for the next even couple years, it's all about power.
I mean, listen, everybody remembers. Like we remember, let's take a basketball analogy. We remember the first year what Giannis looked like.
Yeah.
What Giannis look like now? We remember what Michael Jordan. Remember what Michael Jordan used to look like.
Yeah,
couple of them bad boy Pistons, bad losses. What he looked like.
Oh
right?
Yeah.
So he's got the resources and the knowledge to invest in his body now and become a true professional, not a student athlete. So let's see what the professional Will McDonald has done in this offseason.
So you only got a couple minutes. I got to get you out to practice, like I promised. Speaking of knowledge and resources, C.J. Mosley. You're a guy who played in the National Football League after 30.
Mm-hmm.
What is the challenge when the body is changing, but you know the game mentally better than anybody?
Well, listen, the good thing is he's at the right position. He's at the middle linebacker. So the middle linebacker, those demands for physically isn't as demanding as the guy that's playing the wheel, the jack, or the guy next to him. That's Quincy's job.
Yep.
Quincy's job is to be the crazy, athletic, run, catch all these running backs. CJ is to be able to be a field general, tell guys where to go, anticipation, and to be able to make the tackles. We know he's always one of the most productive tacklers in the game. But a lot of his tackles, especially when you talk about setting edges with those great defensive ends, he's going to be playing from C-gap to C-gap, not having to worry about the D-gap too often because of guys doing their job and guys playing at a high level. So I think, when you look at the inside linebackers that play the longest, it's usually the middle linebacker that plays longer than the wheel linebacker because the wheel linebacker has to go out in space and do a lot more of that. So he's in the right position for the right time. So, you look at Bobby Wagner still playing at a high level. That's because he's inside. You look at some of the other guys, even DeMario Davis playing inside. It's the guys like the Lance Briggs of the world that like, oh man, like these running backs real quick, or oh man, I'm like they go to a slot. I got to go out there and I got to put hands on a receiver, like in cover two. Like, ooh, he quick. I missed him. You know what I mean? Like CJ, he's fine. He'll never be past the guard.
The Jets corners are great. Safety position.
Yeah, he can get bracket help. That's what. See, when you have great corners, then you get an extra defender. So even if CJ's out there, he knows how to use his tools to bracket guys with his help.
We didn't see Chuck Clark. You are very familiar with him from your relationships with the guys down in Baltimore. What does he bring to the table? What did you see from Tony last year? Ashton back as well. Sometimes he plays big nickel. Big picture, what's your thoughts on the safety position?
I mean, safety is one that, if there is a – I won't say weakness, but it's a unknown.
Yeah,
it's kind of there, right? Everybody else is like top 5 and everything, right? And safety is the only thing that you would probably say other teams have higher rated safeties. Now I think people are gonna forget, before last year, Chuck Clark 1 never missed games, but 2, I mean, he was a beast, enforcer, big play guy with Baltimore. The issue wasn't that he wasn't a baller. The issue was that they paid Marcus Williams, and then they eventually drafted Kyle Hamilton. Just, because the Ravens, not because they needed a safety, but because the Ravens are always going to take the best player available. So it was that. So that's what kind of pushed them out. And they did the Jets a solid because they know the relationship, with Chuck, and they wanted Chuck to do right by Chuck. So they sent him to a place with a great defense. And now he has an opportunity. It didn't work out for him last year, but I think a lot of people don't realize just what he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Sure tackler, big play guy, always been. You know what I mean? And now he gets to go come back and prove it. And, stake his claim and say, don't worry, we good on safety over here. I know a lot of people are looking like, oh, Justin Simmons is still out there and all that stuff. But I think we're good. And I think Ashton, the light finally turned on, and he can become like that Eric Smith or James Hedebo, where he has his package where he comes in and he doesn't have to, take all the other plays, but he's capable of going out and doing that as he continues to develop as a pro.
Antonio Cromartie's out there coaching,
Yeah, man. I saw. I'm going to tell them that him and Reeves need to kiss and make up, man. We don't do that. We don't fight in public.
All right, man. Enjoy the vacation. Great seeing you, and we'll be back right here in September.
Absolutely.